Welcome to Passionately Moderate. I'm your host, Mark Gordon. Today is Monday, February 10th, 2014, and I am here with cousin Vinny, Vincent Salvatore.
Yo, yo.
And first-time Passionately Moderate podcaster, Brian Lawshe. B-Lawshe, what's up?
What's going on?
So what we are here to do today is we are going to do a rundown. This is our first part of an 8-part series of a rundown on the off seasons for the NFL, division by division. Our first division today is the NFC East, and we're going to be breaking down all 4 teams here coming up in a moment. But first, we'll talk about the biggest news of the day. Michael Sam, defensive end from Missouri, co-defensive player of the year in the SEC, first team All-SEC this year, 11 sacks, first openly gay player to enter the NFL draft. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's pretty amazing. I mean, to be honest, he's really the first openly gay player in major sports that I can think of. The one thing I would say, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it plays out in the media, how big it becomes. I think it's really going to depend on the situation he finds himself in. If he is drafted by a sturdy team with a leader like the Patriots, the Packers, somebody that will step up, be that mature voice in the locker room to kind of take control of the situation, handle the immaturity of some of the members of the team who probably won't be able to handle him being openly gay in the locker room, I think it's going to be a success, and I think it's going to be something that's great for the league. If he goes to a team where there's not that leadership or the leadership is lacking, it could be kind of a disaster. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, especially towards OTAs and once the spring rolls around, and then even training camp. I'm kind of fascinated by it. I'm excited to see kind of what happens.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. Obviously there's going to be some guys in the locker room that are going to have a problem with this. There's going to be problems on the field at practice. I think there's going to be some taunting involved. A lot of things that we talked about this year with Richie Incognito and the hazing thing. What are they going to do? What are they going to do to this guy?
I mean, hoping nothing, but I mean, I think I'll actually be surprised if the amount of ignorance on the situation isn't few and far between. I think you're going to get there. I'm not saying there's not going to be any types of incidents, but I think what you're going to find in a locker room is that most of the players are going to be open-minded to it. They're going to be very protective over him. I mean, Missouri had a fantastic year this year in the SEC. Exceeded everyone's expectations, and they apparently knew in this locker room the whole year. So certainly something you can play through. I think it's something that a team can rally around, and if he plays well, he'll be accepted. If he doesn't play well, then I think it's a little bit harder. I think the most interesting part of this for me is, does this create an avalanche of players coming out? I think it's pretty unlikely when you factor in 50 to 75 guys on rosters throughout the NFL, depending on what point of the season you're in. 30 teams. There's not more guys in the NFL. Now that there's one guy that's out there, are we going to see a lot more of this?
Well, no. I don't think that there's that much homosexuality in sports, just in general. So,
what do you base that on?
Just experience, playing on teams for years and years and years, knowing the type of person that plays sports. Basically, there's not many gay men that like sports. It just maybe that is a stereotype, but it's just my thoughts.
I think it's kind of naive to think that there's in the entire NFL with 1,800 players or whatever they have, that there's not 10 or 12 or 15 gay people on these teams. I mean, Antonio Pierce said, I heard him on the radio earlier, that he thought he had, and during his career, there was at least 2 or 3 gay people that he played with, which I think would be an understatement. I mean, it's pretty obvious. So,
you have an issue with your microphone you want to tell us about?
I just feel like, I'm trying to step back like you guys are, and I feel like I'm not hearing it as well.
Would you like me to turn your microphone up? How's that?
That's good.
Oh, fantastic.
There we go.
Turn me up in my headphones.
As long as you're happy.
There we go. We're all right.
All right. So, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff that comes along with this story. I think you are going to see more people. I'm not saying that, there's going to be a guy on every team that's out of the closet. Because personally, I don't think there's a reason why we should be making anyone's personal life public.
Yeah, it's really just not a big deal. Yeah, exactly.
I just don't care. And I could see, I think there are going to be some locker room type issues. I think there are going to be some players, depending on their backgrounds, who are going to have some issues with getting changed in the locker room with somebody who's gay, but they got to get over it because the reality is, as society as a whole is moving forward with this stuff. You see legalized marriage, gay marriage in a bunch of different states. We're moving forward on this issue. Sports is going to be no different. You saw Jason Collins come out last year. This is where we're headed.
The first time somebody makes a gay slur, a gay reference in the locker room, it's gonna be worse than the Riley Cooper incident that we had earlier this year. It's gonna get more blown out of proportion than we're even talking about it now, and that's what's gonna be the backlash from this. That's where he's gonna have to deal with some personal stuff, and move on.
Well, I don't think it would. I mean, if it does happen and it blows up, I'm not sure it's going to be blown up out of proportion. I think it's going to be within proportion because whatever team he ends up on, these players are going to have a lot of time to prepare themselves to not be the ignorant guy. And if they really can't contain themselves and put this together, I mean, I'm listening to radio shows all day long today. People are accepting of this. This is happening. Like, there is the media has aligned themselves. They're ready for this. Everyone's ready for this. So the idea that, and they should be, I was certainly ready for it. But not that anyone cares what I think about it. All I can say is this is something that's happening, and if the people who are going to be the ignorant ones, they're going to get blasted. They should know it. Someone's going to be ignorant. They're going to get blasted. You have time to prepare yourself to make sure you're not that guy.
I respect that he kind of got out ahead of this thing. It's amazing to me that he told the locker room before the college football season started and that it didn't come out before this. I'm shocked by that. But I think it was a pretty smart move, and I think it was the right move for him to come out. And people will say, oh, it was a publicity stunt. He's doing it for the media attention. I don't buy that at all. I think he just did it to whatever team he does get drafted on. He knew that at some point it was going to come out. So to kind of get ahead of this and let everybody know and to make it public, I think was a smart move on his part and will alleviate a lot of that media circus that may have happened if he hadn't. So I think it'll be interesting though.
Just one little side note. I feel like the leader on the team, like whoever it is, it's going to be interesting to see who the leader on the whatever particular team is, how they react to the situation, how they talk to the locker room, how they change the atmosphere in the locker room on the field to make him feel more comfortable so that he can play at his best.
It's going to totally depend on that person. It's Antrell Roll on the Giants, Brady on the Patriots, Rodgers on the Packers.
I got news for you. If somebody doesn't welcome this with open arms, it'll destroy a team because it's going to go on full blast. This is not going to be an optional thing where some people can accept it and some people can't. Anyone who isn't 100% on board when this thing gets put out there, they can either fake it or they aren't actually 100% on board. They're going to get blasted. It's going to be ugly. That's the thing. I just kind of assume that wherever this ends up, people are going to be able to keep it together. And if they have feelings that I would think are ignorant about it, they're going to be able to keep that to themselves. If they can't, I have mercy on them because it's going to get ugly fast.
If I'm a coach, whoever whatever system he fits in, whatever team decides to draft him, if I'm that coach, I'm finding the leader on my team, whether it's the quarterback, the safety, the running back, whoever the vocal voices of the locker room, and I'm saying, listen, I want you to stand there with me, stand there with the organization, and kind of be the leader for this. And you have to accept this role. We need you to accept this because we want this to work. We think this kid can help our team win. We think he's going to help us on defense, help us with our game plans. We need it to work. Well,
so that's also the real question: is he going to be able to help a team? Is all this just hearsay? Well, is it all just talk right now? Is come draft day, is he going to actually? Is he going to be able to get into a locker room, start next year, and make a difference? So.
Well, I think the best thing that could happen for the gay movement in regards to this is if you see one or two other players come out before the draft. Because if the whole world gets to follow this kid around and follow this story next year and make a big deal of it, and they go Tebow with this story, and it's all you hear about, it's going to be a circus. I would love nothing more than to see 2 or 3 of these guys come out at the same time so that it can't be covered in that way, and then we'll just move past it, and then it'll be like it won't be a story anymore. I think that's the best thing that could possibly happen.
I think there's a pretty strong chance that happening too. I got that feeling. There's a couple more people in locker rooms that once they see that this doesn't create that much of a stir and people begin to accept it, which is going to take some time. you're definitely going to see more people come out. It's just going to happen. So.
Again, I think the most interesting part of this story will be that the one guy you can't control is ignorant thoughts and how that plays out, because it's going to my prediction for that is if you think Richie Incognito caught a rash of crap for that bullying stuff, if somebody screws up in this way and they let that cat out of the bag, they're gonna be put on blast in a real public kind of way, and I don't think it's gonna go away. I don't think this society is past that kind of thought process or attitude about this type of an issue. So moving on to the NFC stuff and breaking down team by team, we're gonna start off with the Redskins. Last year, the Redskins went 3-13, which I witnessed. But if you'd asked me about how bad their season really was, I don't know that I even realized they were 3-13. But my favorite part of them being 3-13, the most amazing part of this, is that they don't even get their draft pick, because St. Louis now gets this pick as a result of the RG3 trade from a couple of years back. And that is a real blow. I guarantee you when they made that trade for RG3, they didn't think they were giving up a top 5 pick over those next 3 drafts. So that's huge. They obviously fire Mike Shanahan in the offseason, bring in Jay Gruden. What do you guys think about the Jay Gruden hire?
Anything's better than shenanigans, So I just it's got to bring in some new life, new energy in there. They are they're one of the biggest spenders, one of the biggest markets in the country, and there's a lot of angry pigs down in Washington right now.
Hey, but if I asked you to go, if I said to you, we're the Washington Redskins, we're going to hire an offensive or defensive coordinator from the NFL, and I said to you, by performance, who would be your top candidates for those positions? And you say defensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks, offensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, some of the things you might come up with. How far down that list would you have to get to before you said offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals?
I think Jay Gruden has grown. He's built a lot of respect around the league. I mean, I definitely agree with you that would not be near the top of my list for sure.
It's a pedigree thing, though.
It is a pedigree thing.
His brother's awesome.
And Cincinnati's offense, he put together that offense. It was the whole organization, but they had a lot of talent on that offensive side of the ball if you look at the Cincinnati Bengals. And I guess they're just trying to help RG3 in any way that they can. Thinking about watching the Redskins last year and how horrible they were on defense, they were, if anyone could believe this, worse than the Giants. As a Giants fan, I watch more Giants football than anybody. They were just really bad. So an offensive hire definitely is questionable, but everything that Dan Snyder does is questionable. So
how soon is too soon to just blow up the whole thing?
They just did.
Not just Shanahan, but like RG3 too. Get all these big monies off the books. The only guy last year that was any good was Pierre Garçon. He was the only one on the team that did anything.
Well, it's definitely too soon to give up on the RG3 experience.
I agree.
A year ago, we were talking about this guy having the best rookie season in the history of an NFL quarterback. He played in a horrible situation last year, coming off a major injury. I don't think you can put a lot of weight into what he did last year. In terms of blowing up the rest of the team, that's what they're doing. I mean, most of the time you said that the Redskins were one of the leaders in the NFL in salary cap maneuverability. That's what we're looking at. They have more cap room than any of the teams in the NFC East. They're going to bring in some major free agents. They're getting rid of a lot of their higher-priced guys. If you're running the Redskins, what's your first thing that you address?
Brian Arapo. You got to sign Brian Arapo. He's the only. London Fletcher retiring. Brian Arapo has to take over this defense. Has to really, take the bull by the horns and just make something happen on defense. Get some people angry in the locker room. Do what he has to do to get people excited again about playing football. There's no excitement in Washington. There's nobody going out to the games. They blacked out a couple games this year in Washington because of how bad they were. They have to they have to do something. They have to change something. They have to do something differently.
Well, they're going to franchise Arakpo, so they're not going to give him a big term deal. They're going to make him earn it for one more year. They're going to franchise him. He deserves the money. So, what's move number 2?
I think they got to focus on. I think they got to look at the defensive side of the ball, and they got to focus on their secondary. D'Angelo Hall's old. I feel like he's been in the league for 20 years.
At least.
They're going to let him walk.
He's gone. But they need some young talent. They need to look at some defensive acquisitions in free agency. I think Jay Gruden's smart enough where they need maybe one or two more pieces on offense, specifically probably at tight end. I don't think they have an answer at tight end, but I think they have Garcon. Santana Moss is old. They have some young sort of second, third line receivers, Hankerson, some of those guys. But defensively, they were just so bad this year against the pass. They didn't get any pass rush. They couldn't defend the pass. I think they need to kind of focus in. That's not what Daniel Snyder does. He's an eyeball guy. He wants to pick up the guys that make the splash and make the big money. Splash.
He wants the big splash.
He wants the publicity guys. But a smart owner and a smart GM would understand that as bad as RG3 may have been, their defense was 10 times worse, in my opinion.
Yeah,
they were horrible.
I can't even say he was bad. I don't even know what to make of that. The whole thing was so bad. I'm not putting it on RG3, at least not from what I saw. One of the most interesting person, I think, for this Redskins offseason is Perry Riley, who a year ago at this time I thought was an up-and-coming absolute stud in the middle of that defense for the Washington Redskins. He was horrendous this past season. Was 2013 a fluke? I mean, very rarely do you see somebody have their worst year in a contract year, although Akeem Nicks, I think we can call him, he pulled maybe a Nicks. That's what we'll call it from now on. But, I mean, was that a fluke? Is he the kid we saw in 2012, or was he injured? Do you guys have any insight on that? I just think this guy was a stud.
I didn't hear his name all year.
No.
Didn't see him in anything, no highlights. Didn't see him, didn't hear about him. Don't even know who he is after his freshman year in the league.
Yeah, the Redskins are bad all over. I mean, they're the worst punter in the NFL. I mean, they're as bad as they could be all over the ball. I think they start. The real hard part is they don't have a draft. They don't have a first round draft pick. So they're going to have to do some things in free agency. They're going to have to bring in some people. I just don't trust Daniel Snyder to spend the money very well. If they turn it around next year, it'll be because Jay Gruden is better than I think he is. There's just no talent anywhere on this roster. There's just none. I mean, Garcon's a better player than we thought. I like Morris as a running back, but he's certainly not. He's, a game pace setter. He's not a game breaker. He's not going to be the guy he's not Adrian Peterson. You know what I mean? So I just don't see it anywhere. Yes, or they'll bring a Rakpo back, but I don't see anybody anywhere else that can really help this team. And they need help on the offensive line too, especially at right guard. So, any other thoughts on the Redskins? I mean, I know we're breezing over them quickly. Let me ask you this. I mean, where do you go in the draft? Where's your first pick in the draft? If they pick at the beginning of the second round, what position are you going for?
Offensive, defensive line. You have to. You got to get somebody to protect your franchise quarterback. Yeah, keep him out of keep having these injuries. That's been the problem. My biggest question of the offseason is, what's the real reason why Shanahan sat RG3 the last few games? Why was he not playing? If he's your franchise quarterback, he needs experience. He needs to, get out there and, get some kind of rapport with his players and his teammates.
I think it was personal for Shanahan.
He's
great. He lost his mind.
He's just a weird guy. When I started doing fantasy football leagues 4 or 5 years ago, I learned pretty quick that you literally cannot draft any Redskins when Mike Shanahan is the coach because you don't know when they're going to play. You could have Alfred Morris, and one game he's getting 25 touches, and the next game he's getting 5. He's just impossible to figure out. I don't think we'll ever know why he sat RG3. I totally agree with you, Vinny. But
Do you think he was injured? Do you think that this was?
No, I think it was personal.
Preservation.
Definitely personal.
I think Shanahan decided RG3 was the reason that he wasn't going to be the coach there anymore, and he wanted to screw him over, for lack of a better word.
I think he actually wanted Cousins to start the beginning of the year, but because of the management and because of the owner and because of how high a draft pick RG3 was, they weren't going to let that happen. I think in Shanahan's mind, he actually believed that Kirk Cousins was a better quarterback than RG3.
So then that raises the next question. Is he? Is Kirk Cousins a better quarterback than RG3? Like, back to the beginning of what we were just talking about. How long does this experiment for the RG3 last?
I mean, it wasn't it's not. I don't even think of it as an experiment. Again, a year ago, We were touting this guy as the guy completed 66% of his passes as a rookie quarterback, maybe more. He's like, they almost won a playoff game against Seattle, and they might have if RG3 didn't get hurt going down the stretch there. This is an up and coming team. Most people had them winning the division going into this year. It fell apart. The wheels fell off. I'm not putting that on a 23-year-old quarterback. You
can't. When you look at the personnel they have, especially at the skill positions on offense. The defense that they had. I mean, if Washington was going to win 9 or 10 games this year, they would have had to score 40 points a game. They were giving up 25, 30, 35 points every week. What's he supposed to do?
Is there anyone here who is sure that if RG3 wasn't the quarterback in Seattle, they still wouldn't have won the championship this year? Because I'm not. I love Russell Wilson. Don't get me wrong, but it's certainly possible that if RG3 is the quarterback up there, that this year that they find a way to win a championship. This is the Redskins. He's playing for the worst team in football. Maybe they were really bad, and I don't put it on him.
I think that's an excellent point. I think you put RG3 in a Seahawks jersey. I think there's a good chance you find them in the same place.
Yeah, and again, the jury's still out on RG3. Don't get me wrong, but I think if you're starting on rebuilding this team, I don't think you start a quarterback. That's just and especially if you have a guy in Kirk Cousins who you can have on the bench if RG3 does get hurt. I think it's the one place the Redskins are actually doing okay. Moving on to the Cowboys, 8-8 last year for the third year in a row.
I can't wait for this one.
Deja vu all over again. 3 years in a row, they get to the final game of the season with holding their own destiny, and they choke again.
I thought you were actually coughing there. I wasn't. You sold me on. That was a good job.
First of all, there are so many things wrong with this team. This is my favorite team to hate, but they make it so easy. You got Jerry and his kid up there running this thing. And first of all, they're projected to be $30 million over the cap or so, $25, $30 million over the cap. Number one in the NFL. They have $49 million of $126 million projected cap going to Brandon Carr, Tony Romo, and DeMarcus Ware. They're going to restructure these deals, but the way that they're going to restructure, and I don't know how many of our people at home know how the NFL salary cap structure works, but if you have a base salary for this year, then your base salary counts against the cap. But if I give you a signing bonus of $10 million this year, it counts against the remaining years of your contract. So what you can do is if you owe DeMarcus Ware $20 million this year, you can convert 15 of that into a signing bonus, so that only $5 million counts against the salary cap from this year. And if it's a 3-year deal, $5 million from the bonus counts this year, next year, and the year after. Well, the Cowboys do this every year. And what that results in is dead money on their salary cap because they just keep pushing these contracts farther and farther out. By bonusing these players, you're not taking the hit now, you're taking it over the next few years. And I read an article today where the Joneses were talking about how this is just the way they do things and that they think this is going to be the way they do things forever and they don't ever expect to have any flexibility against the cap. And I just don't understand how when you run a $250,000 business, which is what and a $250 million a year business, which is what an NFL team is, you're spending $250 million a year running this team. You have a $1 billion stadium there in Dallas. How you don't spend $1 million or $2 million a year on a general manager? How do you not have a general manager in the NFL? Let me ask you a question. The Baltimore Ravens have a general manager, right? And they have a coach in John Harbaugh, right? I'll bet you both those guys during the season work 16, 17, 18-hour days. They are both completely busy around the clock. Yet somehow, Jason Garrett and Jerry Jones don't need a general manager to take any of that weight off their plate. And all you have to look to with this is Andy Reid. How pumped is Andy Reid about the fact this year he's talking about how he doesn't have to have the general manager duties anymore and how he can focus on coaching and everything else. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Andy Reid is a slightly better coach than Jason Garrett. You cannot do what the Cowboys do. You cannot. It's in a salary cap league and all those other things that these are complicated issues that come up. You cannot not have a guy whose job it is to do this. And I love the fact that it never works out for him, and it's never going to work out for them because all they do is they act foolishly and they defend their actions.
The thing that to me is just comical is, and I've been saying this all along, Jason Garrett is the perfect coach for Dallas because Jerry Jones can control him.
He's the perfect coach to finish 8-8.
Jerry Jones,
he's
exactly. He's the perfect coach to finish 8-8. Jerry Jones wants the control. He wants to make all the moves. He wants to have all the say in who comes to the team and who they pick up. And it is a train wreck down there. There's no recognition of what they need. They have no concept of how to build an organization, and it's a total mess. And as a Giants fan, I love it. It's fantastic.
It's funny, and like you said, it is comical. This is Jerry Jones is the new Al Davis, and they're never gonna get out of this rut as long as they continue on the path that they're in. This is another team I feel needs a complete overhaul. They need new management. They need a new quarterback. They need new everything other than a stadium. They need to be rebranded, if you ask me. They're like I said in the beginning when we started talking about Dallas. This is deja vu, and just like Lawshe, I'm happy year after year seeing them choke at the end of the year because of how bad they are and the mistakes that just come back to haunt them year after year. There's no structure on this team, like Rye said, and until there's changes in the front office, Mark, doing i.e. hiring a general manager of the team to control some of the player moves and the organization of the club. This is never going to get better down there. They're either going to get lucky or they're going to choke, and that's just how it's going to be. It's how it's going to continue to be.
Between Romo and I've had this conversation with people talking about Tony Romo. Is he a choke artist? Does he gag under pressure? People will defend him and say it's not his fault. He puts up great numbers, and I agree with that. I think he's a good quarterback. He is solid. He does put up good numbers. He's one of the best passers, I think, in natural passes, I think, in the league. But you have a combination of a bad head coach who's a poor decision maker and not a leader, an owner who wants to control everything, and then a quarterback who does buckle. Romo does buckle under pressure. He makes bad decisions. He makes last year in the play-in game, essentially week 18 or whatever it was against the Redskins. How do you throw that interception? How do you throw that ball like that? That's just gagging. It's choking against the Broncos.
But they put him in the situations to make those mistakes.
They do.
Too.
They do.
It's just amazing how your careers play out in the NFL. If Romo's on the Giants, I think they still win those 2 Super Bowls. Again, you can't. It's hard to play those games, and Eli did great things. But is Eli Manning a better quarterback than Tony Romo? It's a hard it's a better postseason quarterback. Okay, maybe, but I mean, I think Romo gets a lot of the heat there, and maybe shouldn't. When you're in a situation right now where the Cowboys are, where they have the best kicker in the league, and they're not going to be able to afford to re-sign him, like that's where the Cowboys are in terms of their salary cap structure. They're going to have to let Anthony Spencer go. Hatcher is probably going to be out of there. I mean, they're going to lose their best players again because. They've Brandon Carr on a $20 million deal, and it's just outrageous stuff. And
they're not going to be able to sign Anthony Spencer. One of their own Pro Bowl guys, missed 15 games last year, due to injury. They can't bring him back. He's owed too much money. And they've already brought in a new defensive coordinator. Ron Marinelli is best known for going 0-16. That's just going to make it better.
They went from Monty Kiffin to Ron Marinelli.
Yeah, this is just a complete laughing stock if you ask me.
We've already talked on here about the Rob Ryan thing and how ridiculous that was. And
they should have kept Rob Ryan because at least we get to see him on the sidelines because they were looking at him more than they were looking at Jerry.
Right. So what do you do if you're the Cowboys? What do you do in the offseason? What do you do in the draft? I mean, they're free agency. They can't really do anything anyway. I'm sure they'll find a way to do something, but there's not a lot they can do. What do they do in terms of the draft?
Running back. They need some depth at the skill positions. They need some depth at running back. Maybe cornerback and safety in the defense. Their defense was one of the worst in the league this past season. But behind DeMarco Murray, they have nobody. There's not a single person to step in and run the ball for this team, and that just creates all kinds of havoc for the offense. If they can't run the ball, Tony Romo's dead, and then Tony Romo makes mistakes. It's really that simple.
What do you think?
I think one of the biggest grab bag positions in the draft is safety cornerback, where you can pick a guy in the first round at safety and he stinks and he never amounts to anything. And I guess it's kind of like that at all positions, but I think they need to focus on the secondary. I think secondary, a lot of times you see really good really secondary safeties, corners that have strong careers come out at late drafts, 6th round, 7th round. I think they need to try and find, build that secondary. The corners that they have are not very good. They're paying them a lot of money, and if they want to continue to get beat up and down by the Lions and whoever else they play, especially now with the Eagles and the Giants in the division, who both have strong passing attacks, it's going to be a struggle for them because Brandon Carr is not the answer. They do owe him a lot of money, but they need to build some depth in their secondary because it was just terrible watching them defend especially big time receivers. Calvin Johnson, some of the big name guys that they went up against in the league, they couldn't stop them. So it was almost embarrassing.
I think a big part of that though is pass rush. With DeMarcus Ware out this year though, and he's really, other than Selvey, who's a situational pass rusher, they have nobody other than Ware. They have no defensive tackles going into this year now with losing Hatcher. Spencer won't be back. They need to go defensive line, I think, with their first 2 picks. That's my recommendation for this team. And I'd love for them to use their first-round pick on another running back. What was it? We have Felix Jones, DeMarco Murray. What do you think who can we waste that running back pick on this year? That'd be fantastic. But maybe if we're really lucky, what was the name of the kid from Notre Dame that they had in there for a while? Another Jones, wasn't it? With Marion Barber. Just terrible running backs. I love the Cowboys. They make me so happy. Moving on to the Eagles, the team that actually won the NFC East this year. Vinny, we all know that you're an Eagles fan, so I'll let you start off. Tell me what you see coming down the pike here for the Eagles.
I see Chip pulling a lot of things together, making things a lot more simpler this year, going into the second season. Yeah, with a new team, new structure, basically new slate, clean slate in Philadelphia this year. It was very refreshing to watch, very refreshing to see them actually make the playoffs, finish down the stretch 7-1. It was a fun season. A couple of the things that are standing out to me is the 2 wide receivers, Jeremy Maclin.
Well, before you get, let me ask you a
Cooper.
question, just real, because I think it all stems from this, and I don't know the answer to this. How good is Nick Foles? How good is Nick Foles? I don't get it. I mean, the numbers are outlandish,
staggering.
They're outrageous. What this guy was able to do over the second half of the year. He can't possibly be that good because nobody is. How good is he?
He's good. He's very good. He's better than you think he is. And he's better than everybody else thinks he is. He's still learning. He's very smart. He's very accurate. And he doesn't make those stupid decisions that Michael Vick was making. He's not making the mistakes. He's throwing the ball away. He's sliding. He's doing all the things that Michael Vick didn't do.
Eagles fans are so jaded. They're like, he's sliding. Like that's that's
a big deal.
No, but
there are 31 other NFL quarterbacks.
You see the offense that Chip Kelly's looking to run. A lot of it is based off the read option, and nobody thought that Nick Foles could run this offense, and he ran it spectacularly, and he was. He kind of looked like our buddy Prick in college, with that fast step running in the dark. He looked faster than he really is, and he was deceiving, and he made the right decisions. He did his checkdowns, and he's a smart quarterback.
So for the next 10 years, Eagles set a quarterback.
If they don't re-sign him to a long-term deal after next year, they're making a big mistake. I think he is the quarterback of the future. We're finally getting out of the Donovan McNabb shadow and the era.
You want to go on a date with him, Vinny? You want to take him out? A little bromance?
Listen,
it's getting a little serious now. It's a little bit.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to hide my excitement for the Eagles team next year. I feel like they're going to be one of the teams to beat. I've already put a $100 bet on the Eagles to win the Super Bowl next year.
Dream team, baby.
Because you're the King Mush.
I did pretty good down the stretch. This year. Yeah, Mark knows this already, and the Eagles have a lot to offer next year, and it's their division.
Who's he going to throw the ball to?
All of them. Everybody. Deshaun Jackson's going to be back. Jeremy Macklin's going to be back. and they're going to sign Riley Cooper. Riley Cooper was the biggest standout last year. Was the biggest surprise of the team. They're going to sign Macklin to a short term.
Because here's the thing: the Eagles are known usually for having a lot of cap room. They don't spend all their
money. They don't spend a lot of money.
But this year they're done. Watch this. So they had $17 million at the end of last year that they didn't use for last year. But this year, in terms of their salary cap numbers, even the Giants have more money than the Eagles this year. They're 14th. They have, right now as it stands today, $2.9 million in cap room. So, and this is the list of the guys they don't have signed. Riley Cooper, Cedric Thornton, Jeremy Macklin, Donnie Jones, Nate Allen, whoever the backup quarterback is. No, actually, they need to sign one because it's not Matt Barkley. That's not happening.
I don't see that many holes there. I see two. Riley Cooper and Jeremy Macklin are going to be the guys they're going to sign, and Nate Allen. The rest of them are expendable in my opinion. They have to draft defense. There's a strong offensive line in Philadelphia, maybe one of the best in the league. They're going to be a force next year. There's a lot of good things happening in Philadelphia. If they can put it together, Michael Vick's going to come back for a hometown discount. I feel like if he doesn't, I think he's dumb.
Dumb or done?
Dumb and done, both. The team that threw him a lifeline after a 22-month prison sentence, which basically almost ended his career and life, basically. There's no reason why. I understand wanting to be a starting quarterback, but how many teams out there other than the Raiders are going to give him a shot at starting quarterback? There's not many. He's a 31-year-old broken quarterback, and I don't see anybody taking a shot on him.
I would be, in all honesty, in all fairness, if I was an Eagles fan, I would feel pretty excited about the potential of the team. I think Chip Kelly definitely inspires a lot of confidence with the guys. It's a fresh system. It's something new. I think a lot of quarterbacks could succeed and do what Foles did in that system, but I don't think it's necessarily about him being that much better or him being the top quarterback in the league as far as passer rating, which he was this year. So I think he's a great quarterback for that system. He's going to get better. I do think he's a pretty solid quarterback, especially for the personnel that they have and for Chip Kelly as a coach. I think you said something that was pretty true in the fact that he's a smart quarterback. He's smart.
He's very
smart. He knows the reads. He knows when to get rid of the ball, which is, as a Giants fan, not something that I'm terribly excited to say, but I do agree with you on that.
He didn't throw an interception for his first, what? 200,
a lot of games.
200 attempts.
It was ridiculous.
Something crazy.
It was pretty nuts.
Going back to what you said about Chip Kelly and the energy that he brings. I look at Pete Carroll in Seattle this year, and they were just unstoppable. Pete Carroll brings an energy to that team that is just it's unmatched by anybody else, and he is the second oldest coach in the league, but Chip's bringing that same energy to the Eagles. The young, the fresh, the new, and these star players are excited to play for him. And I think that's what you saw. You saw glimpses of it this year. You saw the young quarterback in Nick Foles, start to come into his own. And I feel after another year under his belt, I don't think Foles is going to regress.
If the Eagles are able to sign Macklin and Riley Cooper, which I personally think they won't be able to, I think Macklin will probably be gone. I think based on Cooper's year, and probably because they can get him a little cheaper than Macklin, I think he'll be the one to stay. I think their tailbacks.
They're both going to be very cheap.
Yeah, Macklin probably will.
He's
injury prone.
Contract and he was injured. He's going to get
wrong.
I think somebody will pay him though. I think with his speed.
I'll tell you what. Who would you rather have right now? If you're signing a wide receiver, you signing Macklin or Nix?
Macklin or Nix?
Yeah,
I'm signing Macklin. Nix hasn't shown me anything since his first year.
Nix is going to get a big Maclin's going to get a bigger offer than Nix.
I hear you.
He's going to get a $5 or $6 million.
When you look at it like that, I have to see where you're coming from. I think Macklin's better than Nix at this point.
I don't actually, but I think they're both going to get good deals.
I agree.
But so we haven't talked about the Eagles' defense very much.
That's the big.
Are
That's
there NFL players in that secondary other than Nate Allen? And that's assuming they bring Nate Allen back.
No.
Is Patrick Chung the answer at safety?
Let's not go down that road right now.
I'd rather look at the positives. Guys like Michael Kendricks.
Of course, you would look at the positives. You're Eagles fan.
I want to talk about Michael Kendricks.
You're going into the draft. You're going into the draft. Who are we drafting?
It's the first 3 or 4 rounds have to be defense. Everybody's got to be defense.
You think Chip Kelly's going to do that?
Yes, I do.
You think he's going to say, "I got all the weapons I need on offense"?
I think everything is good enough, and anybody that we don't have, I think he can plug somebody in and make it work.
I'll bet you anything you want. They don't go defense first 3 rounds in a row.
First 3
rounds, anything you want.
Okay. Well, I feel like they will.
No chance.
Are we going to bet on it?
We'll talk about it later.
Oh, no!
Come on, you got 2 bets coming right here.
No way they go defense.
No chance.
I think they should too, but there's no chance that happens. There's just none. And I think they should. I think they should go cornerback, safety, or safety cornerback, but I don't think they will. And Trent Cole's owed $10 million in 2015, so they're going to need somebody to replace him because he's the only person on that defense who puts any pressure on the quarterback. What happened to Brandon Graham? Is this kid ever going to amount to anything?
I don't think that he really has it in him. The kid's got a motor, but he's undersized for the position, and I don't think he's ever going to amount to much.
You can only have one guy. You taking Cooper or Macklin?
Come on, Vinny.
It's a coin flip. It really is a coin flip.
Oh, well, good thing you're not the GM. What do you think? Cooper or Macklin? You get one. Who you taking?
You get one or the other.
Cooper.
You're taking the cheaper. You're taking the cheaper guy. I think Cooper's probably has a little bit more big play potential, but
gotta love the racist discount.
You gotta love the racist discount. Macklin's that possession receiver that we didn't have this year, though. We have home run threats with Deshaun Jackson and Riley Cooper coming over the middle.
Jason Avant isn't the answer.
Jason Avant's definitely not the answer.
They have Philly has a couple talented tight ends too with Selleck, Ertz. And they got some and they got the kid from Houston too. They have some talented pass catching tight ends there too. So I would say
both the tight ends were a pleasant surprise this year. Yeah,
that kid from Houston barely played at Casey, right? He didn't do much.
He didn't do that much, but they played him at fullback at a bunch this year, and he's going to be in the offense next year. I don't think that he learned it as well as some of the other guys.
All right, so last team to break down is the New York Football Giants. Last year 7-9 after a 0-6 start, finished the season 7-3. Lawshe, take me through my Giants offseason.
I think there's some optimism. I'm personally happy to kind of get a fresh look with the offense as far as Gilbride being out. It was definitely a hot debate and a hot topic, especially after watching how that offense underperformed this year. I think the change needed to be made personally. A lot of people backed him. I had a lot of conversations with people saying they should just sort of ride the course and figure it out and let Gilbride stay because of the success. I did talk to some people that thought he should stay. I personally wanted him out. I think Eli's capable. Anybody that you bring in, the new offensive coordinator, is going to fit in the system well. And I think Eli will be able to adapt and adjust. And I think it's just going to be something that they need.
Let me ask you this, Lawshe. Is a new offensive coordinator going to change the amount of interceptions Eli throws?
Yep.
Yes, he will. Absolutely. Listen, you could say what you want about Eli. He obviously had a bad season, but he's a championship quarterback. He's proven it in big games.
2 times.
He's twice. So I think the biggest thing,
face last week,
which I think is the most well known, shut up, is basically looking at the receivers. Obviously, we're going to lose Nix.
Is that obvious?
I think it is. I'm pretty sure he's gone. They're going to need to pick up a free agent wide receiver. There's not a lot out there in the free agent class.
Let me ask you a question. When was the last time a free agent left the Giants and then had a big year? I mean, Martellus Bennett had a decent year this year for the Bears. But usually when the Giants let these people go, they're right. I think that is going to be a problem for Nix when he gets in the negotiation with some of these teams. If the Giants don't want him and everybody knows they need him,
I'm thinking of Steve Smith a couple years ago. I was
How'd that work out
upset.
for the Eagles?
I was upset when
distraught.
Steve Smith left.
Mark,
I'll be honest.
I remember you tweeting to him every day for weeks and weeks and weeks, telling crying.
That's a mild exaggeration.
Crying your eyes out about Steve Smith. You want to tell everybody about that?
I think you just did. No, it would. I think all Giant fans were really upset about that. This guy caught over 100 balls. He was the real deal for the Giants. But
He was
the
no
Giants,
Amani Toomer.
he was better than Amani Toomer, and and it fell apart quickly for him. But the Giants knew something; they were right. And if they think Knicks has something in there, they'll sign him. I think they can get him on a discount because of the horrendous Hakeem Nicks pulled this year. So we're gonna go with he pulled the Knicks. But maybe you're right. And listen, I think they can replace him with Jernigan and Randall if he is gone.
I think they could replace him, but I do think they have to get another target in free. It might not have to be a frontline receiver, but they have to get someone, a Jerome Simpson type receiver, somebody that can make plays, somebody that can extend the defense a little bit. Because I think Randall's a solid receiver. Jernigan's another sort of possession type receiver. I don't think either of them, maybe together, they could kind of fill the void with Knicks.
If Evans is there at the 12th pick in the draft, you taking him?
Evans, I would like to have him. Evans seems like he has all the makings of a stud, of a Des Bryant type, or some of the big receivers that have come out in the last couple of years. I think he's just one of those guys. He's a playmaker. He's a big receiver, a Hakeem Nicks type receiver. One of those, throw it up to him, back shoulder, and let him go grab it.
Can the Giants, even if you love him, can the Giants afford to go get a receiver with the first pick? With their first pick?
Not a chance.
They can't see you shaking your head at home.
I don't think that they can at all. Yeah, there's too many holes in this team.
Really?
There's too many holes in this team.
Where are the holes?
Everywhere.
Give me the real holes.
Offensive line,
Is
wide
a
receiver,
massive
running back.
No, there's no hole.
Defensive back. They don't even have a kicker on the roster.
Hold on a second.
What do you mean? There's plenty of holes.
Hold on a second. There's no hole at wide receiver. Even without Knicks, this team still has an above average receiving core.
You have one receiver.
No, I mean Randall had a very decent year this year, and they make good receivers at anyone. I'm not worried about the receiving core. Eli's proven year after year that they'll make receivers.
I'm not worried about the receiving core.
He's proven that they can lead the league in turnovers 2 of the last 4 seasons.
What happened this year came down to one problem. And the defense played great for most of the season. People want to forget about it. After they got John Beeson, who, by the way, struggled against the pass, but was a machine against the run and getting everybody else set up. After they put Beeson in there, the defense was studly for most of the year. They finished 7-3. This team had one problem this year. It was a massive problem, and it led to all these other problems, and that was the offensive line. They need a center. In the NFL nowadays, you cannot win without a great center. David Boss has proven over and over again he is not. Even when he's not hurt, he's terrible. He is one of the worst free agent decisions I've ever seen the Giants make. He was a backup in San Francisco for a reason. They thought he'd come in here and develop into something. He's already old and broken. He's got to go. But the biggest thing that the Giants missed this year was Chris Snee. People forget this guy is a 4-time Pro Bowler, all-pro right guard, didn't play one snap this year. Eli's been relying on him his entire career, son-in-law of the coach. If he's in there this year, this team makes the playoffs.
Tell Coffin to tell his nephew or son-in-law that he needs to suck it up.
Suck it up. Yeah, that's what the answer is.
Yeah, that's not even the biggest problem, Mark.
How is that not the biggest problem?
Well, this team is not good. They haven't been good for a very long time.
What do you mean they won the Super Bowl 2 years ago?
Time.
They've only won 10 games. 10 games in a season once in the last 10 years.
That's not true.
One time in the last 10 years.
Not true.
Look it up.
How much would you want to bet?
Just how many times they won 10 games?
I mean, at least twice that I can think of off the top of my head. And 10 years is a long time.
They've only
How many titles?
Won 10 games once in the last 10 years.
Well, the Patriots do it every year, and they've won a Super Bowl in almost 10 years. So
here, I'll tell you one thing that I think the Giants were missing this year too, that they've had in the last couple years. They had in their Super Bowl runs. Was a solid pass-catching tight end. I mean, Brandon Myers caught 80 passes. It didn't seem like that at all.
Not
it
for
seemed
the Giants.
Half of that.
No, he caught 80 passes the year before.
Oh, the year before.
Yeah, he caught like 46 balls or something like that.
He was a pretty big disappointment.
I hear Shockey's available.
But I'm sure he is. They need that tight end is big in that offense, especially with Eli. especially now if they don't end up re-signing Knicks. I think at running back they're going to be fine. I think David Wilson is going to turn into something. I know it's hard to.
How healthy is he?
It's hard. Well, he's not healthy, but I am hopefully when the season rolls around, he was out long enough and he's had enough recovery time that he should be fine by the time training camp
You think they have a 1-2 punch in him and Brown?
I love Andre Brown, but if he stays healthy, I do. But here, listen, what happened to the Giants last year with 6 running backs getting hurt during the year? You can't recover from that. But let's be real. In the NFL, you can go out and find 2 running backs in the offseason. You can sign guys off the street. Now, you can't sign guys off the street in the middle between week 4 and 5 and have them be the starter. But if you don't go into the training camp, you can have almost anyone be your running back in this league. There are running backs growing on trees.
Ricky Williams is available too.
Yeah, there's a million guys that are available. I'm not worried about running back.
Ricky Williams is in Colorado right now. He's in Denver.
Yeah, the NFL is about to lift the marijuana ban for Ricky Williams.
He's rooming with Bill.
So, I think the Giants. I think honestly, if they can get a center in there and a guard in there in the draft, and Beatty steps up and plays decently again this year, I think they're a playoff team right away. They do need some help at linebacker. They need some help at cornerback again now that Corey Webster's probably gone. Although they may be able to sign Webster on a minimum deal. I don't know. Either that or he's out of the league.
That sounds like a lot of holes.
What did you think about how Thomas played this year?
I mean, really, I would rather have anybody in the Giants secondary over anyone in the Eagles secondary.
When was the last time an NFL team drafted a center and a guard and they started that year?
It happens all the time. The Steelers just did it over the last couple of years. The Jets started a center and a left tackle in the same draft, and they've started basically every game since with Mangold and Ferguson. You can get offensive linemen that in the first round of the NFL draft, and there are going to be a lot of guys there with the 12th pick. I don't see a reason why they can't fill those holes.
Here's to hoping.
I think you're a hater. Is really what I think.
I think you're a hater. The Eagles are going to win the NFC East next year. It's clear cut. They're the best team in the division. It's clear cut. They're the best team in the division. And
Vinny, when is the NFL ever clear cut?
It's very rarely clear cut,
but this Eagles team,
it's clear cut with them.
It was pretty clear cut to me last week
with their quarterback who started 9 games and a second-year head coach. They're definitely going to win the Super Bowl this year.
It was pretty clear cut to me with Seattle and Denver last week. You know, defense wins championships, and nobody wanted to listen. And Vegas made their biggest winnings ever on a Super Bowl because there's so many idiots out there that wanted to believe that Peyton Manning is the best quarterback of all time. But obviously, you two know Eli's better, right?
No, I say all the time Peyton Manning's the best quarterback of all time. I'm the biggest Peyton defender ever.
The NFL is never clear cut, Lawshe.
No, I mean you look at a division like, say, the NFC West. Going into this year, obviously we knew Seattle and San Fran were strong, but St. Louis, Arizona ended up both being pretty good teams. St. Louis' record really wasn't that good, but they were better than their record, I think.
They were inconsistent, but they played well sometimes.
And Arizona was 10-6. There's divisions like that, the AFC West. That was arguably the best division in football with the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Broncos. The Raiders obviously stunk, but I think you could say whatever you want. Obviously, we got Philly Sal over there. He's going to defend his birds. He's going to say they're the clear-cut 2014 NFC East champions.
I'll take that bet from both of you right now.
You'll take the Eagles, and I'll take the field.
I'll definitely take that action. Definitely.
What do we got to give me 4-1 on it? But
4-1.
There's 4 teams in the league.
First of all,
and 4 teams in the division.
It would be 3-1. And secondly, no.
Okay, absolutely not. That's what the odds are. The odds are probably more than that.
No, they're not. They're the favorite. How could they? You think the team that won last year is getting better than 3-1? All right. Anyway, the Giants going to re-sign Linval Joseph?
I think they have probably more pressing concerns, but I don't know if I think it probably makes sense for them to. I thought their defensive line this year was actually really good. Patterson, I thought, had a pretty good year. Tuck had a good year. I think Joseph would make sense just because he's so young. I think he's a pretty solid defensive lineman, but I don't know if they're going to decide if they need to use that money to fill a more pressing concern.
I mean, the first half of the year, they couldn't get a pass rush, this defensive line. That's really the reason they went 0-6. For 6 games, they had no sacks.
They were decent against the run for most of the year. They stopped the run
Patterson
pretty well,
and Joseph were beasts in the middle.
You signed Justin Tuck. Justin Tuck is your horse.
I'm not worried about Tuck.
No? Let him go? Let him walk?
Either they'll get him at a discount or he'll walk.
That's the New York thing. That's how you guys always do it, right? You either play for your team or you walk, right?
I don't even know what that means. But
You're talking in
Brian
circles.
Dawkins retired as a Denver Bronco, so you really can't talk to me
Retired
about.
as an eagle. We were there.
Oh yeah, no, that was not retiring as an Eagle. He came back for a ceremony. They let him go. I think he had a little bit left in the tank too. Anybody on this? I mean, the Giants clearly have the most work to do in terms of signing their own guys. They have a ton of guys. It's Joseph, Tuck, Stevie Brown, Andre Brown, Henry Hynoski. Got to bring Hynoski back. Booth, Ryan Mundy, who did real good job filling in for some of the injured players at safety. Nix, who we already talked about. Myers is definitely going to get cut. Beeson, who I think they can bring him back at a real discount, maybe even better minimum. They got to get a kicker. Terrell Thomas, I think, will sign with them for the minimum again. They've been loyal to each other for a long time. Aaron Ross, probably same thing. If he probably comes back at a minimum deal. And then, Pasinger, actually, I think is a guy that they do need to bring back if they're not going to sign a big-time linebacker.
I agree.
Rivers will probably be out of there. Herzlich, who knows? Any other thoughts on the Giants guys that need to sign? Or
No, I mean, again, when we talk about the line, Sean Rogers was one of those guys that filled up the middle. He's old, but he filled up the middle. Same thing with Patterson. I do like Pasco. I think he does, a pretty good job. Obviously, he's not a big pass catcher or a big playmaker.
I thought he had a horrible year.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to. Their tight ends, none of them were really productive.
He had been a great blocker in the past. There were several plays this year where I saw him completely whiff on blocks that got Eli killed.
Yeah,
he had just had a bad year, and I don't know if he's hurt or something else. But I mean, I can remember one game in particular where twice within a quarter he literally just whiffed on blocks and got Eli killed. It looked like he was almost trying to miss the guy. So I feel like I was watching Remember the Titans.
I think Herzlich's got to go. I mean, he does some decent things for them on special teams, but you can't keep guys just based on special teams. Obviously, we saw him at linebacker. He really didn't do a lot. I mean, he just seemed overmatched. Watching him in the middle,
really disappointing in the middle because I saw him play in college. My sister went to Boston College. I went up and saw him play. I thought he was going to be a stud, and but I guess, I mean, and I don't say this in any way, in any type of a shoddy way, but I think cancer takes a lot out of you.
I know what. Yeah,
I just think that really. I mean, because he was as touted as what's his name in Carolina at Boston College. I mean, until I can't think of the kid from Carolina that we talked about the other day who lead the NFL in tackles, Kuechly. He had that same kind of rep up there, but cancer I think took a lot out of him.
Yeah.
Here's my biggest question for, you guys don't agree with me, but is Coughlin on the hot stove going into this season?
This season, I would probably say yes, definitely.
I think this year may have been one of his best coaching jobs ever. This team started off 0-6. They could have imploded. They never did. They came to work every day. They played hard in every game. They were overmatched in a lot of games. But if you look at the schedule they lost to when they went 0-6, whenever we thought that Carolina game was like the worst loss ever, they lost to, how could you get blown out by Carolina? Well, Carolina turned out to be a really good team. Those teams that they lost to early in the year ended up being really good teams.
So if they go 8-8 this year, Coughlin comes back again?
If he wants to.
He's there as long as he wants to.
I mean, if they're 8-8, he's there as long as he wants to. If they go 4-12, I think it's different. But I think if they're competitive, I think he's earned it. Not a lot of coaches in the NFL won 2 championships.
Coughlin's he'll coach till he's 80 if they let him. I mean, he won't. And if he keeps winning and keeps having success, the guy's a football junkie. He's never going to leave.
Like I said, I don't think that they've had as much success as you guys think they have. The 2 years they've made it to the Super Bowl, they were the hottest team at the end of the year going into the playoffs. They have, like I said a little while ago, they've only one season in the last 10 years. They've won 10 or more games.
It's not true. First of all, they went 10-6 one of the years they won the Super Bowl, and they were 11-1 when Burr shot himself and finished that season 12-4.
Your definition of success is completely skewed. See, you because you're an Eagles fan and you never won a Super Bowl.
No, because we win games year after year after year.
So do the Giants.
But you haven't won the big one.
They've only won 10 games twice over the last 10 years. But how many times did they win less than 7? None. You know what I mean? They're in it every year. We play meaningful games in December every year. And that's really all you can ask for in the NFL. Give yourself a chance coming down the stretch.
Any Giants fan that wants to get upset that the Giants haven't made the playoffs the last 2 years is an idiot. They're just an idiot. There are teams, how many teams, 15, 20, that haven't won a Super Bowl in 15 years, 20 years, or maybe ever. We've won 2 in the last 6.
Like the Eagles.
You can't complain. I know that as a Giants fan. I want them to make the playoffs every year. I know Mark does, obviously, because we root for the team. But when you win 2 Super Bowls in 6 years and you don't make the playoffs the other 4, it doesn't matter. You won 2 Super Bowls.
How do those 4 NFC Championship games feel right about now? Exactly. Well, I think that wraps up our podcast here today. Thank you for joining us on Passionately Moderate. We will have 7 more of these coming up. I hope you enjoyed our NFC East preview. Please visit our Twitter page or our Facebook page and let us know what you thought. Feedback's always appreciated, especially positive feedback. But we look forward to joining you next time. Thanks very much.